Okay, here's a few more things about this deal. I gave you the $1.8 million. They also want a $25 billion trust fund for the border wall, ending what they're calling chain migration, family-based, the idea of sponsoring family members to come in once you get into the country, and then getting rid of the visa lottery altogether. I can tell you the issue that some Democrats are going to have an issue with, Steve, and that is the making a permanent immigration change for the entire system for DACA. That has been among the disputes between the two, where the White House has been saying, fine, we'll do the DACA thing, but we want to end chain migration for everybody. Democrats don't want to do that.
I don't often agree with Marco Rubio, but earlier you rolled tape where he said the more you try to do in one of these immigration deals, the harder it gets to do it.
That's been the case.
There's a man who knows wherever he speaks.
Yes, yeah.
And, you know, of course, you need to get 60 votes in the Senate, which means the Steve King approach that the hard right...
By the way, it's not 60. I'd argue you need 80. If you're going to truly force the House to do what they need to do, you need 60 technically, but politically you need 80.
I think they got 68 last time.
That's right. 68 wasn't enough.
68 and Donald Trump pounding on the House Republicans might be enough. I'm not sure it will be.
What do you make of the amnesty issue? Is the Breitbart wing or that crowd going to accept this if they somehow got an end to chain migration?
If you got a wall, you got the reduction in chain migration, then I don't think you'd get everybody on the Republican side. You'd get a lot of them. I think you'd lose a lot of Democrats. It's hard for me to see that deal. And the other thing that anybody who's trying to figure out whether they want to go ahead with this deal has to figure out is the White House on the same page tomorrow? Because this is today's White House.
But this is the first time, in fairness, it actually, what Donald Trump said yesterday, is now backed up by a conference call that we are well aware of here at NBC News that Stephen Miller had. So this is the first time there were Stephen Miller's words and the president's words line up, Susan.
Well, again, I do think that Ramesh is right, that President Trump has changed his position, so he could easily decide that this didn't work when he hears an earful from his friends in the House. And I think you raised this issue of what do you need to get the House Republicans, in particular the hard right, the Freedom Caucus, to go along with it. We were here, last time I was here with you, you had Congressman Mark Meadows on, and, you know, on the one hand, he's been a pretty reliable sort of Trump mouthpiece. On the other hand, this doesn't comport with anything that we have heard from the House Republicans around immigration issues.
Speaking of House Republicans, and before you go, there was a congressional debate last night in Arizona's 8th congressional district, Republican side. Let me just give you a taste.
Basically, I agree with President Trump's agenda. We need to build the wall.
It's time to build the wall. When it comes to DACA, I oppose DACA. President Obama created DACA with the stroke of a pen and rewrote immigration law. We should do away with DACA and go back to letting immigration judge each case individually.
I've been at the border a number of times, and I've suffered being robbed by illegals a couple of times in L.A. and getting hit by one in a car accident, and I never got a dime from anybody because they took off. All this nonsense about the poor people, what about the poor kids in our country that are getting uneducated or ill-educated, and all the people that are out of work?
DACA is misguided. Its criteria is misguided. You can be a 15-year-old, travel to the U.S. illegally, and get a work permit within 5 years.
I can with certainty tell you, and with confidence tell you, that I have done more than anyone on this stage to fight against illegal immigration.
All of those, by the way, these are the Republicans vying to replace Trent Franks, who resigned his seat. So this is for that's all the Republican candidates running. None of those sound like people that would vote to give amnesty to 1.8 million DACA recipients.
And of course, when they're standing on a stage in a Republican primary, they're not going to sound that way. But Donald Trump didn't sound that way when he was standing on the same stage just a year or so ago. And what happens, you know, when you get to Washington is you want to get things done, and especially if you're Mr. Dealmaker, you want to get things done. I do think, though, that what they represent and what you heard from them is similar to what the Freedom Caucus believes, to what the people like Steve King, the hard right, believe. But, you know, they all caved on tax reform. They were big.
Taxes is not immigration.
Deficits and debt were really important.
I don't know, Ramesh, you've seen this firsthand. I mean, I look at National Review, and you guys have been trying to be compromising conservatives for some time, and on immigration, you guys get the heck beat out of you, don't you?
Well, we take it from both sides on this issue because we are moderate restrictionists on immigration. Look, I do think that if this deal, if something close to this deal ends up being what people vote on, I think a lot of Republicans would be able to go back to their voters and say, hey, we got a wall, we got a kind of reform to the legal immigration system that nobody had even been talking about before this year. But the terms of the deal matter a lot. People have a lot of distrust, especially Republican primary voters, that you're really going to enforce the laws going forward.
And we know there's so many ways that wall, you can fund the wall, it may not ever get built. It's going to be hard to get it built in some of these places. There's not much federal land that the federal government truly controls to build this wall.
And what about Mexico paying for it?
What happened to that?
We're going back into the TPP, and we're not going to kill NAFTA. Anyway, guys, stick around. Up